Hello and welcome. So this is a new video for my parenting series, The Truth About Parenting, and in this video I am talking about certain things that don't get mentioned in terms of from birth to toddler years, and the first thing that I want to talk about, because they say that when the baby is first born, that you feed your baby between 2 and 3 hour gaps. But with Henry, it was very different. It wasn't like that at all. He spent his first month from birth in hospital, and so they sort of had a routine in play where he would be fed within sort of 4 hour gaps. And the first milk that they ask you to produce, and soon after you have your child, the midwives, or when Henry was born, encouraged me to start getting my milk coming out, and it took a while for it to do so. And it can be, you think as a woman that it comes naturally to you, but it didn't at all. And I felt very like, I should know this, but when you go, and I've looked after a lot of people's children in my life, because I used to look after lots of the kids in my estate with their older sibling. But when you have your own kid, it is completely different, and it is like a whole new world that suddenly is upon you. And don't get me wrong, it's a memorable experience as well. I love my son to bits, but there's lots of things that you don't get told about, because obviously every baby's different. And with Henry, he would be fed with 3 to 4 hour gaps. So it was more responsibility at the time. But when we brought him home, he would sleep all through the night some nights, and I used to be worried, thinking, is this normal? And would make sure that he's breathing, because he did used to sleep for a long time when he was first born. And we tried to stick with the routine that the hospital had, but that went out the window in the end. So I stuck to the new routine that it took ages to actually get a routine going. And if I were to do it next time, I would have it where each person took a turn, each parent, because obviously I've met someone new now, and so there's been change in that. But if I do have more children, I would definitely seek support when it comes to breastfeeding. And because I did it was like a real hard task to get my milk going, because you have to get the colostrum milk out of you first, because the premature babies especially need the colostrum. So, and then obviously the new milk comes out, and it can take a few days, and they don't say that in baby books that I'm covered. So when you first have a baby, whether it's premature or full term births, Henry was premature. He was born within 31 weeks, and so and he was due to be born on the 9th of January. And if I were to do it again, I would definitely have breastfeeding counselling, because it was a real I found it tough, because it feels like you don't have enough arms to and then he wouldn't really latch on very well, so he ended up going straight from being fed by a tube in his nose to going onto a bottle. But I kept trying, but I still give him my milk by expressing. And I would say that don't feel worried if your milk doesn't come through you know, straight away, because it won't. Sometimes it takes between 1 to 2 days to come through. If you know, and you can. There are things, and if you look on YouTube, that's where I got some advice from. There is videos which share tips on breast milk and that, because you think it comes naturally to you, but it doesn't by any means, and it can take a while for, you know, to produce enough for your baby to be fed on breast milk alone. And so Henry had a mixture of formula and breast milk, because I was worried that he wouldn't be getting enough of my breast milk. So, and he turned out to be fine. So, you know, and they said that it fixed bonding more, not in my case, because me and my son Henry were very close, you know, in that respect. So, but I would definitely, if I do another child, I wouldn't say I wouldn't do it. I would do it still, because I do think it's kind of, one, it's convenient, 2, it isn't natural, and 3, you don't have to necessarily worry about, you know, bringing enough formula milk for your baby to feed. So it's there on the tap. So, you know, it is you know, beneficial in that respect. So I would definitely still breastfeed if I do have more children. But I would say that if you are worried about that, do seek counselling, because there is medication that you can take that helps your breast milk. But I can take it because you can't take it if you've got a heart problem or a heart condition. So, and I really did have a fairly tough time, and then the health visitor came and said, well, you know, if you want to stop, you know, can do. And they said to me that it takes between 8 and 12. You should breastfeed or express between 8 and 12 times a day. But, you know, my body was absolutely exhausted after Henry was born, and I know people may, somebody said that, and I've talked about it before in another video, but somebody said that C-sections are lazy, and that's not the case at all. Henry had to be delivered in the end because his heart rate kept dropping, and when they, you know, went to open me up to take him out my stomach, so I've been eating sort of TMI, but he was wrapped up in the umbilical cord around his throat. So, you know, it was, you know, they made the right decision on that part. So, you know, and as soon as Henry was born, because my blood sugar level was affected, that went straight down, and his heart rate was not fine in the end, and so was mine. So, you know, it was a good call by the nurses. But yeah, but with breast milk, I would definitely prepare more for it, for breastfeeding. And I definitely don't bother getting a manual pump, because you'll be there all week. Go electric all the way, because it does help. And if you can't breastfeed because of one thing or another, because sometimes also you can get sore nipples and cracked nipples and all that, breastfeeding, expressing is just as good. So, you know, if you can't breastfeed directly, then don't you know, get stressed about it at all. As long as your baby is healthy and feeds well, then that's what you should be focusing on. And if you can give breast milk, then fantastic. But again, it's your choice, and don't be put off by, you know, by pressure of, you know, how other mums and dads do it. You know, everybody has their own way, and as long as your child is growing and is healthy and is alert and is not, you know, if they're constantly lethargic, then yes, then you might, that is a worry, because obviously, you know, because obviously when they're first born, babies will sleep a lot, they do, and then I said within after about two weeks, he was very alert, and it kind of was a gradual progression that he was very, and he loved lights. I remember he used to stare for ages at the lights in the neonatal ward, and in the NICU unit, he was just stare at the light for ages, because they can't really see when they're first born, but it's like a shadowy image that they get, you know, rather than a full-blown image, because they've just arrived in the world, so it's a bit like, you know, especially them, it's like, you know, here I am, and you know, I need to have my nappy changed and fed, and then I would say that I'd say within 2 weeks, he was very alert, and he thrived from the moment he was born. He did have a bit of jaundice, so he had to be under a blue light for a couple of days. But what they tend to do, and I want to talk about this because I think I've mentioned it in the blog post or another video. But if your child is under the blue light, then don't worry, because the blue light basically helps to get rid of the jaundice. I was jaundiced when I was first born. It can happen, but it doesn't mean your baby's sick by any means. It's just the colour of the skin can be kind of like a sort of orangey colour, and it's a sign that because they've just come into the world, you know, and so, you know, the body is kind of like adjusting from being in the womb to being, you know, now out of the womb in a cot. And what they did with Henry, because he did thrive and he looked like he could hold a good body temperature, and I would say within 3 to 4 days he was out of the incubator that he was in. He did have a CPAP as well when he was first born, which is like a little device that helps him breathe, even though it's more or less him breathing on his own, but it just gives him extra assistance to breathing. And he was out of the incubator in the cot within 3 to 4 days, which was amazing, really. And the other thing that you don't get really told is about when you first bring your child home, is that they, because I didn't know, at night they can make very, very a lot of noises. Did I speak about this in the last video? I might have done. But yeah, make a lot of noises and then go silent, which can freak you out. But also, the other thing is they will have a lot of waste in their stomach. So don't be surprised if they do have a lot of poo explosions when they first arrive, because, you know, again, because don't forget, when you eat and in your stomach they eat as well. So they do have like waste to get rid of, and don't be surprised if your baby loses a bit of weight before your baby gains weight, because that's normal. Be wary of milk snots, and what that is basically milk coming through the window. And don't be alarmed by that, because I was. No one told me that could happen, and my ex husband even freaked out and said, "No, is that normal, having milk coming through the nose?" And they're like, "Yeah, it is." And it's like, "Well, no, you know, for telling us that, because I didn't have a clue." But yeah, that's normal. And you can get things like Sterimare is the best one, and it's just a water-based spray that you spray up the nose, and it just clears that airway. You can use that for birth. And there's two types, one for birth, one for when they get a bit older. But that's a good thing to have. The other thing that you don't get told of your baby is, because I was alarmed, when you go through your first it's an 8-week appointment with your doctor, they will then go through, like, has he smiled has your baby smiled yet? Do their eyes follow you around the room? And I had no idea that I would be asked these questions, or had to kind of make reference of that, because I just thought that when a baby smiles, you know, when they're ready, really. And there was a few times where it looked like he was smiling, but I wasn't sure if it was wind, because a lot of people say that. It's like, oh no, they're not smiling, they've got wind. And it's like, oh, okay. But then he did. It was one morning when my ex went downstairs to get a cup of tea and that, and get his milk ready. That he did do a beaming, massive smile. And I ended up watching Henry like a hawk at one point, because it made me paranoid. Because thinking, oh God, what happens if he doesn't smile? I do think that sometimes, even though they don't mean to that, sometimes the doctors and nurses can put the fear into you quite a bit. Even though I'm not going to knock the NICU units or maternity wards, because they are fantastic. Because and even when I was recovering, there was lots of women who sounded like they were, had to give birth to, Damien, and be screaming for help to get their babies out the tummy. And so, do be conscious of your child, but don't watch them like a hawk, because trust me, you'll soon know if they're not well, or if they're, something's not right. The best thing to be is be as relaxed as possible. And one thing that I would do next time is do probably hypnotherapy to help me, because I do suffer with anxiety and stress. Miss I here swelled up again this week, which I didn't have this. I didn't have this since my son was born, and I used to get it every other year, and it's inflamed eye, and I got that as soon after Henry was born, and so I couldn't go and see him at first, just in case it was an infection. But it's not. It's a sign of stress, and also one thing that you can get is what's it called? Cerebral palsy, where your face droops on one side. That is that can happen after childbirth. And it's not to scaremonger you, just to make you aware. And do read up about, much as you can. But these videos are for information that we don't necessarily get told, and that's one thing. But also, you do have to watch, not a hawk, but be aware of if they're crying a lot of the time, if they are not taking food. Also, babies get the tongue tie, and sometimes you're supposed to have like a gap between the bottom of your jaw to your tongue. But that bit there, if it's still joined together, then that can affect their breastfeeding. So do be aware of that. That can be a factor. You can get nipple shields if you do get sore boobs, because that is normal. So don't worry about that. And period. So I had no idea, because I did bleed after having Henry, but it can stop once you start breastfeeding. And I didn't know that. I had no idea that would happen, because I read the books and nothing mentioned that. But yes, you can bleed very heavily once your baby's been born, and so you can get special pads, maternity pads, for when you bleed after birth. But then it can stop for a while. If you're breastfeeding, then your period can stop while you breastfeed, and it will come back once you finish breastfeeding. And I had no idea that was the case, but yes, that is true. The other thing is eczema. Now Henry had very bad eczema from birth to he was up to about 6 years old, I would say, because he's 7, going to 8 now, where he would be covered in eczema. And we tried all different things like vegetable oil was recommended, E45. Now that made it worse, and in the end they prescribed us steroid cream to get rid of it, and it did. And there is a good Boots Own brand which worked to treat as well and prevented it. And when you first bring a baby home, you don't have to bath them all the time, so just take that in mind. You don't have to bath the baby every time. Perhaps say once a week is enough, because their skin's still delicate, and so you don't need to. But one thing I would say you should do is baby massage, because that is brilliant. Because when that you first change your baby, they will fuss and cry, because it's their way of saying, leave me alone, I'm sleeping, but obviously they have to be changed, because obviously you don't want to be sitting in poo or wee, so you do have to change them. But just be aware that that eczema can start from birth as well. Henry had kind of like a patch up there on his forehead to begin with, and then his first year, around about 3 to 4 months from onwards, he was covered in eczema, and that wasn't because we put anything in the water. At one point we just used water and no bubble bath or anything, and the Boots Own brand sort of a bath wash, it seems to be a winner. E45 cream made it worse, as I said, and then we were given steroid cream, but you can't use steroid cream all the time because it can cause scarring apparently, so it can't be something that you can use all the time. But if your baby does suffer with really bad eczema, because also when they start dribbling and they eczema, if that gets onto the eczema marks, it can cause an infection. So, and I would recommend you get those bibs, which is like a triangle. I don't know what they're called, but they're more snug to wear, and they will collect dribbles. Because when the baby starts teething, which can be early as well, and I didn't know this, but I don't know if I mentioned it before, baby can start growing teeth in your womb, and I didn't even know that. But the midwife that I used to work with when I worked for the company Avent, which I'm sure you've heard, they I've got my line of thought, it's stopped me. But I was waiting for Avent, and what we needed to, and what we did in the end, we changed his milk, his formula milk, to organic, and that seemed to help as well for his eczema. But they can get infected from head to toe in it, and so the bibs collect the dribbles when they start teething, like I say, and they can grow teeth from when they're in the womb, because the midwife I worked with when I was working at Avent said that her daughter was born with a tooth, and Henry did start to teeth early, because I remember, because at first he was in a crib next to our bed, because first of all he was in a motor basket, and then he was in a crib, and I noticed it one morning where he was wide awake really early, and I knew something was strange, because he wasn't fussing, but he was like wanting to gnaw on something, and that's a sign that they're teething, and constant dribbling. And the dribble, if they suffer with eczema, can infect the eczema sting. And then he was covered head to toe in eczema, and then we changed his milk, like I say, to organic, and that seemed to do the trick. But and another thing that I didn't know, but apparently when I was a year old, I became allergic to milk, so I had to have a special kind of milk instead. So that is quite common in babies, but don't worry about that. And also constipation. Babies can get quite a lot of constipation with especially formula milk. And I know just as it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, I'm not. Formula milk is fine, but you should try and give your baby your milk as well, for the colostrum. But like I say, don't beat yourself up about it if you can't. But just make you know, formula milk is fine, but you do need to start and then give your baby some water. And at first they will probably turn their nose up at it, because Henry did. He wouldn't entertain it at all. But then now, that's what he mainly drinks. Even now, he will drink milk or water. And really, I don't really want him drinking too many fruit juices or fizzy drinks, because I know I do. But I just think I'd rather let him drink those when he's a bit older, because for his teeth really. And also, he's not very good with acidic food still, like oranges and that. So I'm a bit worried about giving him fruit juices and stuff like that still. But yeah, that's really the main things that I want to talk about that you don't get told. The one thing I would say to rest on as well is muslins. They are great, muslins, because you can use that to wrap your baby in. You can use them to wipe stuff up and clean with. Believe it or not, they are a godsend, muslins. And whoever invented those, I want to kiss, because they were absolute godsend when Henry was born. And I would definitely, when I have another child, invest in more, because they are just great things, as well as those cross bibs, which I don't know what they were called. Yeah, that's it really for this video. And so yeah, so don't, if you are worried about breastfeeding, if your child is born premature, or you are concerned about breast milk and premature births or full-time births, just chat with your health visitor or your midwife or your doctor, and they will help you. And there's lots of advice and information online. Obviously, this will be on my parenting blog, which is the Parenting Adventures Tips and Tricks.wordpress.com. But you can also go to the Baby Centre, which is Channel Mum and Mumsnet, and they are all brilliant sites to go to if you want advice on, if you're pregnant and you have concerns about certain things. So, and remember, just chill as much as possible. Just chill, enjoy being pregnant. Just be careful of what you can and can't eat whilst you're pregnant. But just enjoy it and relax. Don't stress over anything. What I say, watch anything that can keep you calm and make you happy. So, if there are things that are upsetting you at the minute while you're pregnant, then don't watch it. Just watch. Don't need to worry about the birth, really. I should never watch those programs at 16 and pregnant, because part of me didn't want to know about the birth yet. I just wanted to wait for it to arrive, and sometimes that is the best way. So that's it for this video, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.